Okay, so are you looking to buy a new car or a nearly new car and you haven't got a clue, one, how to do it, and two, what car to buy, whether to go for an electric car, whether to go for a hybrid, whether to go for a petrol or a diesel. And I'm going to cover off some ways to get the best value for those of you people who aren't car people. Maybe what I mean by that is they don't know a lot, or also people that actually think they know a lot. So if you're here as a novice, or if actually you're here for somebody who's actually bought new cars all their life and don't really know a lot about it because it's been fairly easy. Maybe you've had a company car or something like that. I'm going to cover off this running it into the ground thing, which maybe people do. And also I'm going to cover off this buying a car with no real plan of selling it or whatever you want to do. And I'm going to cover off how to manage your affairs when you're going to a dealership to buy it. So your negotiations and all of that kind of stuff. There's a few pitfalls. I'm going to cover off some of those. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be a lot wiser and maybe buy the car that you really should buy. Okay, so I'm Gary, I'm from New Again, and one of the things we do is make cars like New Again. We've been in business since 1987, and I'm not in the buying and selling part of the business, but I see a lot of the mistakes that people have made over the years, and I've met the trade, I've met the dealers. We've done a lot of work for all of these people over the years, companies, big companies, fleets, as well as lease cars, PCP contracts and all sorts. We've been involved in, when I say involved, we've been on the outskirts of it, and so I've got a much better idea of how things work. So I've made this video for those of you who wants to purchase a car and maybe have it for a few years and get the best value. Okay, so first of all, I'm sure we all know this, but a car will lose a lot of its value in the first few years. And I'm just going to be generic here, and there might be one or two of you criticise this, but I'm just going to say that as a rough guide, without all the different economy things going on, or the pandemics, but as a general rule, most cars after about 3 years have halved in value. So we'll just use that as an example. So a car of £40,000 will be around £20,000 after about 3 years. So that's a rough rule of thumb. So we all know that as soon as your car goes out of the showroom, unless the cars for exceptional reasons have been on a waiting list and they're impossible to get, and there are some cars out there like that maybe you could get a premium. But for a general rule, you drive a car out of the showroom, somebody else is going to want to buy a brand new car as opposed to your second-hand car, so the value drops. You know you're not going to sell it. So let's give you a rundown on what some of the things that you may want to choose to do. First of all, there's a lot of people in limbo. I know the government's pushing for the electric cars. I'm going to say I'm not a fan. I like driving them, I've driven a few, and most of my family have got one now, or certainly my brother's side. And so I've seen all of those things, and I've got quite a few friends who've got the electric cars. And there are perfect places for those. If you're living in a city and you might want to get a little car and just only go out from there and back. And there's loads of examples of where the electric car works really well. Or if you want to get an electric car and you've also got another car, i.e. a diesel or a petrol or a hybrid, then you could potentially have the advantage of both. So I'm not saying don't buy an electric car, but I'm saying if you don't have lots of cars and you are going to want to go to another city or go to France or whatever, then I'm a lover of the hybrids or even a diesel. Because you are not committed to all this where you may need to plug in, and I'm not convinced that the infrastructure is going to keep up with the demand and all of that stuff. So I'll give you an experience I had last year. I was driving a horse box and we pulled into the service station. My wife was running in to get some food and whatever, drinks and things, and I had the horse in the back, and I was going around and round the car park and trying to keep the horse cool, to be honest, and keep it happy that we're moving. And as I was driving around, there was quite a few people sitting down at a homemade table, one of these fold-outs and chairs, and I didn't recognise what they were doing. I thought, well, you're at a service station, why are you having a picnic, you know? And then I worked out that actually they're all on the chargers. And as I went round and round, and it was busy, so as I went round and round in this horse box, there was a guy pulled up in a hybrid car, a Porsche, actually, an electric car, and he was waiting, and I could see that I had gone round again, and I'd see that he's waiting, and after about 15 minutes he'd gone. So, you know, you can see a frustration there, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not making this video about those people. If you like sitting there and talking about your car, then great, that's up to you. Me, you know, I want to pull in, get my diesel or my petrol, and I'm going because I've got other things to do other than doing that. So there might be some electric car people that are telling me. So another electric car story. I do get a lot of people say that I go to and from work for just £7, you know, any of you are giving that example. I'm not sure it's just £7 when you consider depreciation. And I'm not sure the argument's fully run yet on depreciation. I do know that the biggest depreciating cars are the electric cars. So if you bought one for £40,000 and let's say it depreciates over 2.5 years by half its value, then it's going to cost you £20,000 to sit it on your drive for 2.5, maybe 3 years. So, you know, you can get your plug and spend £7 if you like, but I'm not buying in on that whole story yet. And also, something else about the electric cars, I'm having a pop at electric cars here, aren't I? But, you know, they're not, in my view, they're talking about the environment being friendly and everything else. Well, we've got to dig the batteries out. I'm not sure they're measuring that when they're doing the measuring of the electric cars and the environment, because you've got to dig out the battery stuff. And also you've got to dispose of that later. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with the car when the battery's running out. I do know a friend who's had one for about 8 years, and the range is much less on his, but he is one of those people that gets the best of it. It's a good tax advantage. Why the tax people want to give a benefit to something that, you know, they've got their own arguments. Anyway, so you're maybe in that same thing now. You're thinking, well, actually, some people have gone from this conversation because, I'm going to get an electric car. But for those of you who are still left that actually are thinking, well, maybe what is he talking about? So what do I buy? I'm going to be thinking, do I get a hybrid or do I get a diesel or whatever? So the diesel ones now, some of the diesel ones are still very efficient, and you can get good value for money if you're not living in a city or around a city where you need to be restricted. And you may want to do your homework on whether that city you live near that is going to be restricted in the next couple of years. You might find a diesel is a good vehicle, particularly if you're doing long journeys and you just want to get down the motorway, because you're going to get good fuel economy and you get there. I mean, you know, they've got lots of torque in the engine, and you know, you just go and you get there. So, you know, you're not going to have to worry too much about how long it feels to fuel. The hybrids, myself, I like those. There's an argument about both them with the environment and the fuel, but the hybrids, I think, for the moment are probably the one to go for if you can afford it. Right, so here's the value thing, right? So go to the dealers. Now let's talk, actually, let's just back it up a bit. Let's just talk about what car you're going to need, what's practical, how big is it, what size you want, all of that. Now, you may want to do a little bit of homework on that yourself. Obviously, you've got an idea, but I like quirky cars. I like cars with a little bit of fun. If you're later in life and you're thinking of getting something boring, I would say think about getting something a bit fun, maybe even a convertible or something you always wanted, because some of those fun cars you can still use from A to B. Maybe you're in your time of life now, you've done the kids and the family, and so therefore you're thinking getting something for the later years, and you may think, well, I just want something easy to do. So I like the Toyotas and I like the Hondas, and for very good reason. In my view, that the vast majority of each one of those companies' range are very reliable and very, very well built. You're less likely to be spending out on it while you've got it. And also the time and hassle that is involved in getting the things fixed. You know, a red light comes on the dashboard. There's no right time for that. You know, so I like the top-end Japanese cars, and I'm sure there's lots of write-ups and reviews on all sorts of other cars that are reliable. But I think, you know, they've proven themselves over the years. Hondas make the best engines, that's my belief. Toyotas make the best cars, but there's not a great deal in it. So if you like the RAV4 over the CR-V, or, you know, then, you know, I think, that, you know, you pick the one you fancy. Right, so if you're looking at a sports car, the world's best-selling sports car for a very good reason is the little Mazda MX-5s. You can't really go wrong with one of those. Do your diligence on the old ones, obviously. So if you want to get the max out of motoring, my view is to buy a car that is potentially around 3 years old. It's lost its value, and you want to be looking for a car that's already tried and tested. So you're not going to be, because it's 3 years old, you're not going to be buying a car that's the very latest engine. So you need to find a car that's actually already got an engine that's been in there for some time, and you can do some easy research on that online and say, is this engine bomb-proof? Are these cars great? Do they do 200,000 miles? You know, because when I get a bit further into the video, I'll explain why that's important. So okay, so you've decided you want to pick out one or two models. You also want to pick out who's going to look after it. You want to know what mechanics are going to look after it. And if you picked, I'm going to say the Hondas or the Toyotas, then you're unlikely to be into that mechanic for problems. So you may even want to go back to the dealer, and then later in life, as you've had it for a while, you may want to get it serviced by your person you know. So let's take that scenario. So now you're talking dealers. Right, so I'm not a great lover of buying a car that's miles away, and you're swatting up online and you think, oh, I've seen one and it's in, you know, 50 miles plus. Ideally, you want to be buying a car where the dealership has got a great reputation. So read the reviews, find a great dealership, and then I would be making an appointment to go and see the particular car that they've got. But you want to ask a few questions before you do that. I would be suggesting that you want to know that they sold the vehicle. So question number one, I've seen you got that vehicle. Is that one of yours? Did you sell that car new? Is it one owner? And if it's not one owner, to be honest, there's plenty of one owner cars out there. If it's an ex-demo, then maybe there's an explanation, so there's two owners on the logbook. But you need that explanation verified. So let's go back to the one owner. You want a car that's been bought from the dealer by one owner, and maybe there's a reason they've changed. Maybe they're a person that's wealthy enough to be able to change it every 3 years. So whatever that story is, you need to verify it. So now you've called the dealer, you've said, I've seen let's use an example, one of my favourite cars, I've seen your Honda CR-V, and I just want to know a little bit about it. So question one and number one is, did you sell it from brand new? And if it was sold from brand new, then is it possible to contact the previous owner, because you should be able to contact them, and do you know if you serviced it, and also has it been involved in any accident or any damage? And they should be able to let you know that. The salesperson should be able to say, well, we know the guy, the people or the ladies, they come here, you know, so you should be able to verify that. Now, I've got the model and it's this and it's coming from another dealership and we've got it all in our network. I'm not a fan of that. And the reason I'm not a fan of that is because there's this don't know bit. It's coming, and we see loads of cars with somebody smoked in it and all that nonsense. So, you know, you want to know, are they smokers, are they animal owners, and you want to know directly from the dealer that sold it and the people that sold it to the dealer. So there's that link then. So you're going to have to be prepared to pay more than it's worth in the open market. So you might be swatting up online. I've seen one for, let's use an example, a 40 grand car, and you're looking for a car that's 20 grand. Well, there's going to be plenty of 20 grand ones. But the one that is being sold by the dealer, it's been well looked after, it's got what specs you want, but let's not get too fussy about the specification or the colour for the moment. We're verifying that. We're verifying that it's sold by the dealer and the dealer knows the car and the people and they've looked after it and it's had no accidents. So now you're booking an appointment to go and see it. You're not buying a dealer one, a transfer, none of that. You're going to the dealer. So let's go to the dealer, right? So the dealership are going to want to ask one question, and they're saying it as they're walking up towards you. They're thinking it because they say it, because it's part of their DNA. And the first opening lines they'll say is hello, and the second lines they'll say is, have you got a part exchange? So your answer to that question at the moment, I would suggest, is not for the moment, no. I'm just looking at what deal you can do on this car, please, right? So sit down, have a look at the car, have a walk around it, get inside it, see if you like it, discuss with the dealer what they know about it, whether it is the right model, the engines are bomb-proof, and all of that stuff. Have a drive in it if you like it. Has it had any repairs? Whether if it's had a scuff on the wheel repaired, did it have a little dent done? If it's had a bash and it wasn't that bad, then I would be very concerned about what that bash is. So I'd want to know, because you want to know exactly whether it's been thumped and it's been an insurance claim and all that stuff. You want to avoid those. I'm not saying they're not the dealerships and these body shops are not doing a great job, but you really don't need to buy one that you're guessing with, because you've got 22 grand, okay? So let's just say that that's where we are at the moment. So the car's going to have done about 30,000 miles, something like that, 26,000, 39,000, something like that. That's in the dealership remit, something like that. So you should be able to look at it and look in the boot, look at the spare if it's got one. You should be able to look at the front tyres and then work out whether they're the ones that came with the car and they're nearly worn out, or they've just been changed. You should be able to do that. You should also be able to look at the discs at the front. If it's an auto, you'll be able to see then whether the discs have got a lot of wear on them. If at that point you're not sure, you may even want to ask service department, what has it had done? Because their service department should be able to pull it up on the screen and go, yes, it's had disc and it's just had tyres, or we didn't do the tyres. But, and you need to see that they're not all odd and there's something not right. If there's something not right about this car, that's the time you go, thanks, but let me know when there's another one comes along, or is there another one, or go and see the equivalent model at the other dealer, because you want to get on and buy one. You don't necessarily at this point want to hang about. So, but let's assume now they're doing the deal, you've had a look, you've got to be prepared to pay maybe a couple of grand more for that one as opposed to one that you might see online that you think is going to be a winner, because you're now sitting in front of a potential winner. So the dealer puts the deal together, and my advice then is, once you're happy with the deal and you're now ready to purchase, is to then say to the dealer, look, if I was to introduce a part exchange vehicle, I've seen the deal you've given me and I think that's a fair deal. What would it be? What would you give me for my previous car? Can you just have a quick look at it? Yeah, I know I'm not really going to sell it to you, but I might if it's a deal that's worth me doing. Most of the time you'll get a true value then of the car you have for part exchange, and my experience is it's usually a bit lower than you might have thought. The value to them is what I'm saying. So it's not a mixed up deal, it's what would you give for that trade. And usually, if you can say, use an example, say yours is worth about 7,000 or 8,000, usually the dealer would be wanting to take it for a couple of thousand less, maybe £1,500 less, because they've got to now auction the car and pay the costs and take the responsibility, take the risk and all of that stuff. So the reality is that your best way to deal with it, in my view, is to sell it on the Auto Trader or if you're in a different part of the world, one of these online places. And because your car's below 10,000, you're likely to find a private buyer. So let's take your car now. So you've got your new car, you want to take delivery, and they've arranged all of that. And So my best advice then would be, and it doesn't matter whether it's us, but I would go and get it protected. I would put a ceramic coating or a graphene coating on it, get it buffed up for the buffing, you know, see an expert that can advise you on what the best coating is, and at the time the best value coating, and what you need to get it like brand new. And believe me, you can get them pretty much like brand new. A car that's an honest car, that's only done about 30,000, you would be shocked. We do this regular as clockwork, so we could park that car back next to a brand spanking new one, and you'd have to do a double take to see which one was new. And if that's not true, you probably bought the wrong car. So what I'm saying to you is, look at that car, there's dents and scratches around it, and you're not sure, walk away. If there's no dents and scratches and you're really not sure, get someone else to come and look at it, just to be sure. Someone in the family, someone to know, or have a check on it. And when you have the check on it, you need to be present and with the person who's checking it and say, I'm not really looking at mechanics, really, realistically. I want to look at the condition of the bodywork, I want to see if it's had any paintwork or whatever. But in theory, you shouldn't need to do that because you've done your diligence with the dealer and they've spoken to the owner, and we know it's all original. So okay, so now you've got your car, you've had it made like new. Some of you might want to put a private plate on it, some of you don't. So you've now got your car, and my best advice is to keep that car for as long as it suits your lifestyle. And what I mean by that is that I'm now thinking of keeping it for a long run, not just 2 years or 3 years. You're taking less depreciation in that period of time. If you bought an honest, reliable car, you could easily run that for 5 more years. Yes, you might not be able to keep up with the Joneses, maybe. However, you're going to get max value out of that time. And my best advice then is when you part with a car, if it's below £10,000, you're going to get you're going to be able to sell that privately. So what I mean by that is that cars that are over 10, maybe £12,000 advertised on the Auto Trader, places like that, most of the buyers are going to want to buy it from a dealer and pay the 14 or whatever that figure is, a bit more, because they want to get it on credit and they may want the dealer guarantee. So your car, when it's still at 12,000 in value, for example, is going to fall into the area where some people might not buy it because they want to pay a bit more and go through the dealer and have the finance. So if you take your car a few more years and it drops into that 10,986,000 pounds value, then you've got a car that you can sell and probably gain that extra couple of grand because you've got a perfectly working car. Now, that leads me into buying the next car. Then if you're going to the dealer again, doing what you did before, if you're seeing a car and you think, you know, that's a bit out of my price range, but it's what I want, you may want to wait another year. Or it might be that you see the car that you thought was the right car and something doesn't add up. So you've still got a perfectly good car. And I always say, George Soros's advice, which is a famous investor, if you can, always leave enough for the next man. That goes for you ladies too. So what I mean by that, there should be plenty of life left in your car, and then when you advertise it, very easy now on the Auto Trader, put the reg in and all the spec comes up, and then you should be able to put your story, bought from a dealer, one owner previous to me, no accident damage, or I've had a bump at the back, or whatever your story is, that many miles, serviced properly, well looked after, ceramic coating, that's the car they're looking for. So your car, once you bought your car, you should be able to go straight to the dealer, straight to the Auto Trader and sell your car. A couple of hazards on the Auto Trader. I would say that you need to make sure the money's in the bank when you do your transfer, because it's all easy these days. You can do it with a phone or an iPad or a computer. But you need to make sure that, because there are people out there that might lead you up the garden path and then you end up... so if you get somebody who's phoning, you've got your car advertised on the Auto Trader, if you're not sure, you're not confident, I would say, even if you're not, then have a neighbour round or a couple of friends round and let them be with you when somebody comes to look at that car. So my best advice at that point is also, if they've done the transfer with you and they're going, oh yeah, you know, I've agreed 5,100, yeah, we'll have it, shake hands. It's service history. Oh, there's me boot bit, whatever. There's great, good up. There's me driving gloves. There's the deal. People get into this mode where they're going, oh, I'm fine, you're fine. Oh, we're all honest, you know. You've just got to do your diligence, and you know, make sure that all the I's are topped. Make sure the logbooks and everything's done properly, and make sure that the money is in your account, and agree with them. I'm not letting the car go until the money's in my account. And so if it takes an hour or two, we might have to keep you here and have a cup of tea. So ultimately, if not, I'm sorry, but you can't take the car till the money's gone through. So, you know, that's really obvious, but it happens. People, so it's gone through, you've just seen it, here's the thing, and then, well, it's not in my bank account, I'm sorry. So that's a little thing for that. So now you know, look for your next car, and it's the same cycle. So you see where we're coming from. If you had a ceramic coating on it and the car's still in lovely condition, my best advice is keep it clean, look after it, you get less damage on it, and you should really spend, as a rule of thumb, no longer than an hour giving it a good clean before it's sold. So if you're having to have it renovated and dents and wheels done, then you've had it as a scruffy car while you own it. So it should be well kept, it should be in lovely condition. If it's got a coating on it, it should all be glossy. An hour's clean, make it all clean inside, vacuum, and then it should be ready for sale. So somebody should be looking at it going, oh my God, this is what you advertised it of. And then they've been looking for ages for a car like that, I can tell you. So bosh, you've sold it. So you've got the maximum value over the period of time because the depreciation left. You've had a reliable car. You're not in a rush to buy your next car. And that would be my best advice.